All right, so good morning, everybody. It's good to see everybody out this morning. It's been quite a week. And I'm all out of sorts. I don't have my markers ready to go. But let's do what we typically do. Let me try to get a little bit of rhythm and routine here. And let's start off with core values. No. What's before Bible? Oh, Jesus' core value, is he valued? People. All right, now, Sarah, take it away. Bible. All right. Prayer. Worship. Service. Community. Outreach. Relevancy. And stewardship. And here we have timeliness, growth, and adding value. Add value. All right, that's where we are this morning. Just a little bit of logistics. Next week, Bob is stunt doubling. Invite your friends to be here next week. He is going to be talking about acquiring wisdom. So if that doesn't get you interested, I don't know what will. So that's where we are. After that, we're going to be looking at, and this is sort of becoming a little more solidified in my mind. We're going to be talking about dogma and disagreements. The week after that. From there, I think we're going to be talking about conflict. I mean, these are happy subjects, right, to go in the end of summer with. We're going to be talking about conflict. And then the one lesson that I'm working on is walk, stand, and sit. All right, so that's what the next several weeks are looking like. So just be aware of that. For everybody who served at Camp for Kids, and there's a number of those shirts that are in here and coming in, how amazing is that? How amazing is that just to see a bunch of people come together and share their gifts, talents, and efforts for the glory of God. It is really something to behold. And there was lots of good work throughout the week, but I also noticed, and I don't know if you guys know me. Sometimes I'm about as sharp as a bowling ball, but what I picked up this time was that there was also a lot of opposition. There was a lot of challenge. There was a lot of resistance. There was one, so there's a lot of there's a lot of anticipation going into camp, and then we hit camp, and now we're done with camp, and there was a lot of opposition going through that. And I wanted to encourage you today to not think of camp as being done, but to think of camp as being the start of whatever this next phase is. And I know just personally, because I'm sore today. I'm really sore, and it's because I'm soft. I know that. I don't work hard like that very often, and everything hurt yesterday. It'd be easy to say, "Oh, I'm glad that's done," but it's not. There were 16 counselors that were baptized. I don't even know how many kids, how many salvations we may have had. I haven't heard any of those numbers yet, but we have all this stuff going on. As I got to thinking about that, I've shared with you over the last several months I share with you that framework on the 7 levels of awareness. And what happens is when people set out to do something new, when they set out in that area of individual expression, we should never be surprised when you hit resistance. The example, the easy example that I use is, you decide you want to get in shape, so you go to the gym, and what happens the next day? It hurts. It hurts bad when you step out, and so there's going to be kids that stepped out and, in expressing their faith, and they're going to find resistance in places that they probably didn't expect. And we need to recognize this as a start. These are kids that need to be supported of all ages, adults that need to be supported of all ages. And so as the week went on, I was noticing this resistance. Wednesday was especially tough for me. I got home and I ended up face down on the floor in the living room for a decent period of time praying. The role that I play, or at least I try to play, is to give those kids give the counselors a little bit of encouragement. And it was interesting. I go out to give counselors encouragement, and as I'm driving home, I'm just met with the resistance of discouragement. And so I found myself face down on the floor in the living room Wednesday morning, and then Pastor John sends a text out. I don't know if he sent it to the men's prayer group or he sent it something. Hey, there's challenges. There's challenges going on. There's resistance. Can you be praying? And then the things start to chime, and so I'm face down in the living room for a little bit of time, and then I get a text message. From my friend Josh. And Josh was actually here this morning. He asked me what I was going to teach on. I said, I'm teaching what you taught me this week. But he sends me this text message. And I'm caught off guard by this text message. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what he was talking about at first. Well, it turns out he was watching an old lesson. And he was like, man, that was really good. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really good. And then he sends me something else, and I'm like, yeah, that's really good. And so I finally, are you watching a series right now or something? He's like, yeah, you were teaching on the Holy Spirit last year. This is the stuff you were teaching. And I was like, oh, wow. This is what happens when you just submit yourself for God to use you, right? He uses you in ways that you don't even know, that you don't remember. And I didn't know, and I didn't remember, and that was the encouragement that I needed on Wednesday. That was the encouragement that I needed on Wednesday. And I'm sure if you've been with me for any amount of time, you've heard me use the expression, we all need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. Right? It's easy that as we go through life that you get knocked off balance, you get spun around a couple of times, and really whenever that happens, whenever you get off balance, whenever you get spun around, whenever you get disoriented, what you need to understand is that there's only one direction that you need to know, and that direction is which way is up. Right? Which way is up? Right? Let's look at that. So let me see. I would tell you that all of that is to serve as the lead-in to what we're going to look at today. And the lesson that we're going to look at today is a lesson that I'm calling who's and what's. Oh no. Who's and what's. All right. Now, this is a lesson that got my attention a couple of months ago, and it got my attention in a secular way. I was attending a virtual conference, and the speaker came out, and he was teaching about how his business grew. And what he did is he had this chart, and the chart had all these bar graphs. So here is And he's like, this is his business in 2006, whatever. I'm making this stuff up now because I should have taken a picture of it, but I didn't. And here we are at 2008. And here we are, and he's showing how his business was growing and hitting, I need a better marker, and hitting these different milestones. And he said, what really got my attention, I think he was talking about hearing aids when it comes down to it. The business doesn't really matter. The point is that his business would hit these different plateaus. And what happened is that there would be something that happened that allowed them to go to the next level. And he went back and he identified what those things were, and then he started labeling what allowed them to go from here to here, and he labeled it as a who or a what. And what was fascinating to me, and I never really thought of it this way, as he went through it, he was like, oh, this was a who. This was a who. This was a who. And it just sort of struck me that the overwhelming majority of these different breakthroughs came from who's and not what's. And in full transparency, I had never even thought of something like this from this perspective. And if you would have asked me, how does a business go from one level to the next, I probably, before seeing that presentation, I probably would have said, oh, there was probably a bunch of what's that got better. There was a new product, there was a new software, there was something, right? They put automation in. There was something that was put in that allowed them to go from here to here, right? And that was not the case. I would tell you in 2006, I was training pharmacists to do medication therapy management services, and I found myself in Chester, Virginia. Chester, Virginia, I believe, is just south of Richmond. And there was this different opportunity. I don't know. I probably had 15 or 20 pharmacists in the room with me, and they were getting excited. They were getting excited about what was going on. And you know what they said? You know what? We're going to be able to knock the socks off of this, but you know what we need to be able to really knock the socks off of this. And this probably won't surprise you, but this I think is an excellent illustration of the thinking. They said we would be able to do this so much easier if we all had company cars and we all had company laptops. They thought the solution was a bunch of what's. If we just had this thing, it would get better. It would get better, right? What I have found is people often look to what's as being the missing piece instead of looking at who's as being the missing piece. Now, the key is when people join any organization, they have to have the right skill set. And when they have the right skill set, things can be completely changed. Right? So this guy was talking about, and I'm making this up because I don't remember, but he was going along, and then he got a chief financial officer. He got a who, and they said, if we do these things differently, if we structure these things these different ways, and they go and all of a sudden they're doing this, and that now they know that they need to buy some robotics or whatever, and they put some automation into their factory, and they go, and then they say, oh, you know what? Things go to the next level whenever we address safety, and they got a chief safety officer. Like whatever the scenario was, it goes, but it turns out that it's a bunch of who's that help us get to the next level. Sports fans know that it's the players that can dramatically change the trajectory of a team. It's who's. It's not that, and we're in baseball season, right? We're in baseball season. It's not that they get better baseballs. It's not that they get better bats or gloves. It's that you get the right player, you get the right who, and all of a sudden things can change dramatically. They can absolutely change dramatically. When the right who comes along, it can gel into something special. And that's a fine lesson in and of its own. You know, I may have given a little mini lesson of this here a couple of weeks ago. But what was interesting is that just a couple of weeks ago, as I was starting to percolate on that subject, Pastor John gives out these books every once in a while that he asks us to read. This one is called 21 Days of Prayer for Your Church Leaders on Strategic Renewal. Okay? Now, I don't know how many people he gave this to, but I got to chapter 19, or day 19, right? And what was interesting is in the first paragraph on day 19, it ends with this sentence. Well, I guess it's the next to last sentence. He says, "Yet the nature of these gifts is not a what, but a who." And I said, oh, I better take some time and teach on what's and who's. And the author goes on and he points us in the direction of Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. So if you want to turn to Ephesians 4, 11 and 12 with me, we'll take a look at this. It reads, I guess I'm done with this as a prop, so I'll get that out of my way. Chapter 4, verse 11, it says, "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up." And it hit me. Paul is saying the exact same thing that this guy at the conference was telling me. Or maybe this guy at the conference was telling me the same thing that Paul was telling us all those years ago. The fact of the matter is Jesus gives everyone skills that when we use those skills appropriately, they can build up the body. And that can build up the church, that can build up the business, it can build up the team, it can build up whatever, when we take those skills and we use and we develop those appropriately. And I think that that's a refreshing and that's an encouraging thought for us to consider here this Sunday morning, right? I think we can find some encouragement there. Now, by show of hands, how many of you have done Next Steps? Okay, there's quite a few. Now, if you haven't done Next Steps, who's done a spiritual gift assessment? Okay. Now, if you've done the spiritual gift assessment, one of the areas of spiritual gifting is the gifting of shepherding. Do I have anybody that had shepherding? Not surprised. Not surprised at all, right? So that's a gift. That's a gift that we have, and it's to shepherd people. It's to help people move along, to help them move forward, to help them stay on the right path and off the wrong path. That's what shepherding is all about. But Paul takes this a step further, and he says, no, we need to equip. We need to help people along, but we also need to help them get better. It's not just making sure that they get to the right place. We want them to get to the right place in a better state than what they are. And as we see, there's some people that have that gifting, but a lot of us aren't gifted in that area. There's a lot of us that aren't gifted in that area. This is real work. This is real work that we need to be aware of. So I want to look at the larger passage here. If you would, we're going to read Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 through 16. We're going to take this larger passage, and then we're going to do a little bit of we're going to put a little bit of effort on that here this morning. So starting at verse 11, it says, "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. From Him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Now, this passage identifies a group of people who I think we would generally call leaders, right? Paul identifies apostles and prophets and teachers and evangelists and pastors, and I think we would very quickly say, well, those would be the leaders of some type of group of believers, right? But here's the thing: as we've studied in this class for years now, everyone in here is a leader, even if that's not your title. Even if you don't have the title of pastor or teacher or whatever, you're a leader. You have some influence on things. We simply have different roles. And these leaders that Paul lists in this passage, those are people that have different roles within the church. So, I'm just going to read my note here because I got myself sideways. It says, as Paul points out to us in this passage, the charge that is put on us is not simply to shepherd people, but to equip people. And that this is a major responsibility that we have as leaders. We are to equip people. Now, I want to ask you a very personal question, and I do not want you to raise your hands. I want you to think about this. I want to ask you this question: who are you equipping? Who are you equipping? And you may not be able to answer that yet. That's going to be part of the challenge today. Because if the body's going to grow and mature and to be able to do the things that Christ's body is going to do in this community, you know what we need to do? We need to be equipping. The solution is not a what, the solution is who. It's not a Bible study that's going to change all of our lives, and all of a sudden it's going to be a bunch of who's that are pouring into people, that are equipping people. That's how it's going to move forward. Now, the question I wrote here is, who are you equipping? And I think the only wrong answer to that question is nobody. Like if you say, I'm not equipping anybody right now, that's probably the only thing that I would say, if that's your answer, we probably need to do something about that. As long as you're equipping somebody, we're moving in the right direction, right? So I would ask you this: within your role within the church, who are you equipping to do the things that you do? And it was interesting, when you go out there to camp, to me, it's, and not that I know this firsthand, but I'm going to make a statement that's probably beyond. Tim, you'll correct me on this. I mean, it's sort of like the military out there. Like everything that exists in the real world exists in the military, right? Like you got people who are cooking and cleaning and doing all this stuff to make that thing go. And the question that we all need to look at is, who are we equipping? Who are we equipping? I don't know that they do this anymore, because it's been years since I've actually gone to McDonald's, and I know some people are big fans of McDonald's. If you have real young kids, they're probably big fans of McDonald's. But it used to be when you would go by a McDonald's, there would be the golden arches out there, and it would say McDonald's, and it would say over X number of million served, right? They used to have I don't know that they still do that anymore. But how does that happen? how does that happen? And, if you've ever gone to McDonald's, I think you know that you can expect consistency from one McDonald's to the next. So if we were to go, if we were to come out of the church parking lot and turn right and go into Meadville, we could come to a McDonald's, and you know what the fries are going to be like there. But if you come out of the parking lot and you turn left and you go to Franklin, and you go to McDonald's in Franklin, how are those fries going to be? They're going to be the same. You have replication. You know the burger's going to be the same. Now, you know that's what it is in our little part of the world, but what if you were to go into Ohio? Are the fries in McDonald's fries in Ohio the same? They're the same. It's replicated. Same in the Ukraine. I was going to go that far, but yeah, you go anywhere on planet Earth, it's the same. It's replication. And that's the challenge. That's what equipping is about. It's how are you replicating yourself? How are you replicating yourself? You see, we're called to shepherd people. We're called to equip people so that they can become mature. And then the church will strengthen and mature. And if you pick up what that second part of that passage was, we become resilient. We're able to withstand the different waves and winds that come and blow on us and try to throw us off. So this is all about being a who that does a specific what. So if we want to equip people, we need to be the who's that do these wants. And I'm going to give you a list of what's to consider here this morning. I have a list. I think there's 8 things on it. These are some things that we can do to become more effective at equipping. I'm going to just call this how to equip. Number one is we need to care for people. Like but care, I'm putting that all in capitals, because care means that we're going to communicate with people. It means we're going to affirm people. We're going to speak life into people. We're going to recognize people. We're going to tell them when they're doing good. We're going to tell them when they can improve. And we're going to be an example, right? We got to care for people. I want to encourage you to you need to tell yourself that you care for people. You need to tell your neighbor. Tell your neighbor, I care for people. I care for people, right? And I want to challenge you to write this down. I want you to write down, I care for, and then hopefully you have a name that you can fill in there. I care for, and put that name in. Who do you communicate with? Who do you affirm? Who do you recognize? Who are you serving as an example for? I care for someone. Now, if we're going to equip people, we know this. We know that people bring certain things that they're good at to the table, and they bring certain things that they're not so good at to the table. So one of the things that we're going to do if we're going to equip people, we need to help them minimize weaknesses. And maximize strengths. That's no surprise, right? Now, I'll tell you, I didn't get this right away. I spent way too much time trying to help people turn their weaknesses into strengths. I wasn't very good at that. You know, try all you want, you're not going to get a dog to climb a tree real easy. That's not their strength. It's not their strength. try all you want, you're not going to be real successful in helping a cat learn how to swim. Right? That sounds like an exercise in futility, does it not? Help people maximize their strength and help them minimize or cover their weaknesses. Right? Number 3, if you're going to equip people, you need to give them time, energy, and focus. This goes back, I could do a side lesson here on being intentional, right? We know that intentionality teaches us that things don't just happen, but things happen just. If you want to equip somebody, you're going to have to be intentional about doing that. Number 4, you need to be a resource. Be a resource. Right? You want to support them. You want to mentor them. You want to be able to say, these are the experiences that I've had, right? These are the challenges that I've faced. These are the things that I've done. These are the results that I've gotten. Feel free to try them. Feel free to ignore them. But do yourself a favor and at least try to learn from my experience, right? That's be a resource to them, right? The note I have here is you can't give what you don't have, but absolutely give what you have. Give what you have, even if what you have is horrible, right? Let's say, this is the horrible experience I had. Whenever I did this, I fell into this big pit. And I'm telling you about this horrible experience I had. Why? So that you don't fall into the pit. So that you don't fall into the pit. Sean and I had... met Friday morning here. It's been a couple of months ago now. We were talking about facilitating, and the tip is that you'd be amazed at what happens is if before you ask a question, you say, I'm going to give a name, and then ask the question. So I said, I have a question I want to ask people. Bob, I'm going to ask you a question, and this is what the question is. And what happens is from a facilitating perspective, my experience has been is that whenever I put Bob's name ahead of the question, then he stops daydreaming. Right? Because sometimes you get lulled in, and all of a sudden there's a question that's and we tell me somebody else has been there, right? You were in class, teacher asked the question, they knew you weren't paying attention, and they do some teachers do this to be a jerk. Right? Like some of them do. They do that to prove their point. You weren't paying attention, right? So, here's this question, and Jess, what's the answer to that? Wasn't here. Sorry. Right? Right? When you're facilitating, when you're equipping people, right? Call their name. I mean, it's a simple thing. It's a little thing. All it is it's taken two things and you reverse the order, and it's a dramatically different result. It's a dramatically different result. Right? That's an experience that I have. That's an experience I share with you. Do with that as you will, but it is absolutely an impactful thing to do. When you're going to equip people, was that? Oh, I missed it. Number 5. I put these out of order now. You need to give responsibility. You need to allow people to have that responsibility. You need to allow them to do things on their own and to make their own decisions. Number 6, you need to give clear expectations. I'll tell a story about Bob. I asked Bob to stunt double for me many, many months ago. And I said, Bob, I'll help you however I can. I said, but understand this, it is your job to be Bob the teacher, not Jess the teacher. People are not coming to see Bob do a Jess impersonation. One, because nobody wants to see that, right? It's just that's just not what. But it's to be. How do you help people be? The expectation is that you do your best, right? Number 7, and this is sort of an add-on: eliminate unnecessary burdens. Eliminate unnecessary burdens. I would say this, what you want to do is you want to require the best effort, not the best result. Give your best effort with what you have right now and get the best result. Promote growth and promote progress over perfection. When you're equipping people, don't expect somebody that you just started to equip. Don't expect them to be able to do something at your level. You probably have a lot more experience doing that. But give them the opportunity, give them the encouragement, give them the permission to go out there, and give them the permission to fail. I'm going to tell a failure story about Brendan. She's not here to defend herself, and Taryn, you're going to keep this story honest. But Brendan, we gave some responsibility to run the kitchen at one point. We've taken that away from her. Actually, she's probably largely just rejected it. But she was making, what was it? She was making tacos, and she didn't measure something correctly, and it wasn't that good. She put too much water or too much water into it, and it was like taco soup or something. I don't eat tacos, but that's what it was. There was a time that Brendan, she thought, well, this would be better with milk in it, and she just added some milk to the recipe, whatever it was, and she said that wasn't that good. There was a time that there was some spaghetti sauce cooking, and she thought, you know what would make this spaghetti sauce better? She dumped a cup of sugar into that spaghetti sauce, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. But you got to give permission. You got to let people, you got to say, hey, and there's a lot of folks that find themselves in a situation where they're scared to give that permission, or they're scared to take that risk. You know anybody like that? You know anybody like that? I know thousands of people like that. They're scared. They're scared. The last thing I want to do on equipping people is this. Catch them doing good things. Catch them doing good things. It's easy to catch people doing bad things, isn't it? But when you see somebody doing that good thing, recognize that, reinforce that thing. That's how we help build those. That's how we help build those habits. I'm way off in time here, but I'll try to wrap this up quick. In this passage, Paul addresses some specific roles in the church. He addresses the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the pastors, the teachers. And they each had different roles, right? And those roles still exist today. We still need evangelists today. We still need teachers today. We still need all those roles. But the matter of fact, we have a number of other roles today. We have nursery workers, right? We have greeters. We have sound technicians. We have camp cooks. We have first aid nurses. And I'm going to stop there. I'm not intentionally excluding anybody. But it takes all those roles to make something like camp happen. It takes all of those roles to make something like camp happen. It takes all those roles to make a Sunday morning happen. It takes them all. They all have great importance. And the charge that Paul gives us still stands. Who are you equipping? Who are you equipping? I say this because if someone was to go down for any reason, if we're not equipping others, the local body can be disabled. The local body could be absolutely disabled, right? So, my prayer this morning is that you have someone or someones in mind as to who you're pouring into and who you are equipping. I have a list of self-reflection questions here, and it didn't print out well. Maybe I can figure out how to do that and just give that to you. I'll figure that out. I apologize for that. Trace was telling me about how she was having issues with the printer and Adobe Acrobat, and I had some similar issues. Well, I just have similar issues. I don't have to qualify that. I just have issues, right? But yeah, I had something that I had designed to be a nice takeaway for you, and it did not turn out that way. So we'll need to fix that. But I'd also tell you this: seek feedback. Right? We all have gifts. We all have things that we do well, and we all have things that we don't do well. And I would say the things that we don't do well, we can oftentimes be absolutely clueless about them. We have no idea, right? We call these blind spots. These are things that you do not see. You don't see that you're not doing it well. You may not even know that it exists, right? And we all have them. And so one of the things that, and this takes courage. This isn't an easy thing, but to ask people for some feedback. What are you hitting on? What are you missing on? What are those things, right? I think you all know by now that I'm a reasonably insecure person. I'm a reasonably insecure person, and what is most important to me is that you grow. And whenever I I don't do this all the time because I don't really want you to take it to heart. Again, I'm insecure. But what's most important to me is that you grow. And there'll be times that I'll remind you that if you're in this environment and you're not growing in this environment, I do not want you here. And I don't mean that in a mean way at all. I want you somewhere where you are growing. And if this is not the environment where you're growing, find a different environment. And you know what? If nobody came back next week, then I would know, well, hey, it's really me, right? It's that. But people come back, so there's some feedback that I get that maybe you're growing. I hope you're growing. I hope you're growing. I hope you look back and you say, you know what? 90 days ago, I was not the same person. 9 years. Some of you have been with me for a lot of years. 9 years ago, I was not the same person. I'm a little bit better off today. And as you grow, the question I would ask you is, are you doing the work that the Holy Spirit has given you to do? As you're growing, at some point you have to. We're like a seed, and you have this seed plant, and eventually you have a plant that grows up, and that's a plant. I mean, I'm not an artist. You know that, right? There's a plant that grows, but at some point, you're producing fruit, right? And what happens if you take that fruit and you plant it somewhere else? It's replication. It's replication. Are you planting that fruit? Are you intentionally planting that fruit? That's a question that we have to look at today. Now, earlier today, I told you about a chart, and I want to encourage you to reflect on your life, and I want to encourage you to think about some of those milestones, like that bar chart, and I think I erased it. Oh, no, it's right here. You can look at your life, and you can say, you know what? There's all these different milestones that I hit. And I want you to think of those milestones, and I want you to say, is it a who or a what? Now, it could be, hey, you know what? I graduated high school, whatever, right? That could be a what. That could be a what on your list. It could be you met your spouse. That's a who. You had a kid show up in your life. That's a who, right? You had somebody share the love of Jesus with you. That was a who. I got to thinking about it. There's different milestones in the church history. You have God creates the earth, right? That's a who. I lost my eraser. A little while later, you have Jesus show up. That's a who. Things got better. A little while later, Jesus is crucified. That's a what, right? He raises from the dead. That's a what, right? I'll change that here. That's a what. But now he goes away, and he says, when I go away, I can't leave you hanging. What's he do? He sends a who. He sends a who. Who's are so important, and I want you to know you are a who. You're a who. You're a who. That's where I'm going to wrap up today. I'm way over time, so I'm violating our core value. So we'll go ahead and stop there. Are there any questions, comments, or answers?